Good day, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining our masterclass webinar today. My name is Miu. I'm based in Thailand and I'm your host today. It is such an honor to be your host and to welcome everyone. And today, in our masterclass session with our expert, together with my other co-host and moderator from Indonesia and in Singapore as well. So would you mind introduce yourself, maybe Lilith first?
Hi, good evening, everyone. So welcome to our IELTS Masterclass session today. So this is your day, this is your show. So please, any question that you may have, please feel free to ask in the chat or in the Q&A section. And we look forward to your active participation. And by the way, we also have a representative from Myanmar, just for everyone's information. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So maybe Myanmar, would you like to introduce yourself to the participants today? Hello, can you hear? Maybe Indonesia first, if you're ready.
Hello. Welcome to the IDP IELTS Masterclass Webinar. I hope that you will get some tips and tricks to your tests, and I hope that you will gain something from our webinar, and I wish you all the best for your tests in the future.
Thank you. Myanmar, are you ready? Would you like to say something to the participants before we start?
Okay, sorry, I am from Myanmar. I am a participant with you. Yes, I'm from Children PSB IELTS Masterclass. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And if you are wondering what is the IELTS Masterclass workshop, today, this session, we basically focuses on 4 IELTS skills, which is listening, reading, writing, and speaking. From this workshop, what you will get is, 1, you will get practical tips on how to enhance your English IELTS skills and to avoid common mistakes. Also, you better understand the assessment criteria and how your skills will be scored. And then finally, you will also learn from an official IELTS expert who will guide you and your answer to answer your questions. And if you are joining us via Zoom, feel free to leave the questions in the Q&A box. And if you are following along us with us on Facebook Live, please share the questions in the comment box as well. And then I will read these questions out to our IELTS expert today at the end of the webinar. Also, I would like to introduce you to our expert today, Mei Koh. She is a highly trained educator who has been teaching the English language and IELTS preparation at tertiary institutions in Singapore for the past 20 years. And besides, she's having a master's degree in education from the State University of Buffalo in the US. She's also an expert in coaching writing skills, and she has helped us set up a writing center in one of the universities she's lecturing in. So without further ado, let's all welcome our expert, Mei Koh. Over to you, Mei.
Thank you. Thanks, Nir. Hi, everybody. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. And thanks for that introduction. So let's move on. I think Nir has mentioned these purposes for doing this workshop today: gaining practical tips, knowing how you'll be scored, and of course, avoiding costly mistakes. So whatever we can share with you with all the experience, and for myself, with all the experience of working with IELTS, hopefully I can help clarify some things for you. Now, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or the Q&A. We will have a session at the end of the workshop or at the end of the session to address your questions as well. So if you want to wait till the end, you can do that as well. All right, so we might have a poll at the end. I'm not sure if you have that, but anyway, just to tell you that you probably have access to this masterclass pack. It's a bunch of handouts, and you probably have access to it via PDF. And I'll refer to this just to the end where there are some criteria. If you don't have it, you can actually find the breakdowns, the band descriptors, which are the criteria for grading for each component. It's available online. The public version is available online for anyone who wants to check what the requirements are for each band. Okay, so let's just talk about the general aims that you should have. Okay, so one of the things you should aim to do is to improve your English every day. IELTS is a test in language proficiency. It's not an academic test per se. So the focus is not on, how well you can memorize some facts. The focus is on your process of learning English and how well you can use it. So that means you need to improve your English on a daily basis and be using it, and not just using it only when you are doing practice tests, okay? Get yourself familiar with the band descriptors, which describes, in words and in detail what you need to do to get a certain score, okay? Also, kind of be aware of the language skills that examiners are looking for. And of course, I will share with you whatever common mistakes that people do so that you can avoid making them, okay? Now, just a quick word about the difference between academic and general training. There are two types of tests. So most of you have probably gone through this step already, but just a reminder that academic is generally for people who are applying for universities overseas. Usually the universities will request a certain level IELTS of an IELTS score. General training is generally required for migration purposes. For if you're migrating to Australia or Canada or the UK, they will require that you have a score, an IELTS score. Now, the general training is, as it says, general. So it's for general English, whether you can function in English, in an everyday sort of scenario in English-speaking countries. Academic obviously is focused on your academic skills. So can you show your academic skills, in the test? Now, when we talk about band descriptors, you can see here a very general or quick description of each level. And IELTS is, you're given a score according to what you are able to do. So it's not based on percentage or anything like that, but your ability to speak the language. So most people who are targeting, whether you're going overseas for migration or you're going to university, most people are aiming at 7 and 8. Okay, but you can see here that 7 and 8, it's between a good user and a very good user. So you can read the description and you can see that there's sort of higher requirements for these scores. A 9 generally is hard to get because a 9 is generally for native speakers or close to native speakers. So, but getting a 7 may be attainable for most people. Many of you might already be at a 6. So you just have to work extra hard to get to the 7, okay? All right, just a quick description about the structure. The academic and general training tests are similar in terms of structure and timing and everything. Okay, there are only 2 components though that are different. The reading and the writing are slightly different, but the listening and the speaking are exactly the same for both types of tests. Okay, so as you can see here, the listening is 30 minutes, 4 sections, 40 questions. Reading is 60 minutes, 3 sections and 40 questions, and the writing is 60 minutes with 2 tasks. So And then speaking is 11 to 14 minutes. It's in 3 parts. Now, the speaking is often scheduled the same day as your test, usually before or after your test, your computer-based test or paper-based test. Sometimes, very rarely, it's scheduled on a slightly different day, but it's definitely a separate item. The rest, listening, reading, and writing, are administered to you together. The total test time is about 2 hours, 44 minutes. Now it says here there's 10 minutes transfer time, but it's only for the paper-based IELTS, which most people are not doing anymore. But there are, yes, IDP still offers the paper-based test. Okay. Just a quick comment about computer or paper-based. As I said, IDP still offers both. So you can choose. Just be aware, of course, it's about how comfortable you are with the different modes of delivery. So some of you prefer computer and typing on a keyboard, and other people prefer the handwritten part. So you choose according to your preference, but just make sure you're aware that the difference is that the results for computer-based are available in 3 to 5 days generally, but paper-based takes about 13 days. So give yourself, that amount of time. If you want to do paper-based, make sure that you have 2 weeks, okay? So let's just say, so IELTS is a highly sort of, it's a high stakes test. So everything's been sort of revised, reviewed before it's been released. So now let's talk first about reading. So that's the first component. So there are 4 components. So I'll go into reading first, and then I'll go into the others. So just to let you know, again, reading is 60 minutes for both general and academic. But the questions there are 3 separate sections and 40 questions, okay? So 3 sections being 3 different types of reading, okay? Now in academic reading, there are 3 sections, 40 questions. Topics are of a general interest. Of course, leaning slightly academic. All the topics are generally nonfiction. They are informative writing. There's no sort of literary type of work. Okay, so this is just to make sure that, to test your ability to read textbooks and things like that, right? So, so it's good to practice with long passages from magazines and so on, right? Now, for general training, the topics are also of a general interest, but the types of reading generally could be in practical things like notices, classified ads. They're definitely much shorter than the passages for academic reading. Okay, but again, divided in 3 parts. Now, let's look at how the reading skills are tested. So as I said before, that IELTS is not an academic test. So they're not testing, your content knowledge or anything like that. They're testing your ability to use your reading skills, like skimming, scanning, and reading for detail. Okay. So let's talk about these 3 skills. We tend to use all these skills sort of, interchangeably, but there are slight differences. Skimming, does anyone know what skimming is? What's the difference between skimming and scanning? Yes, Afesulahi, go ahead. Yeah, someone raised their hand, so go ahead. You probably need to unmute yourself. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
What's
Yes,
the difference?
yes, for the scanning, So one is looking for a particular information. For instance, something was said to have happened in 1963. Maybe the question says so thing happened in 1963. So I will just go to the passage and look specifically for 1963 and see what happened around that time.
Sorry,
Okay,
I didn't really catch that. I couldn't hear you.
Okay, I mean for scanning,
Yes.
one is looking for a particular detail, maybe the year something happened or a particular percentage. So one is looking for that particular detail in the text. But for the skimming, it's also a kind of rapid reading, but it covers more details. So one will just look about a set of information generally, but not as specific as scanning.
That's right.
So just to look at the
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So you are correct. Scanning is looking for some specific information that you already kind of want to know, right? Skimming, as he said, is just to get a general idea. So it's a little bit more general. It's not as specific as scanning. You get a general idea of the whole passage, okay? Usually what we do is do skimming first, get to know the whole passage, kind of get a gist of what is being written. And then after we look at the questions, then we scan for specific answers. Now, there's another component, the reading for detail, or another skill. Of course, when you get specific questions, then sometimes scanning for the answer is not sufficient. You actually have to read for more details, right? When you scan for something, you also in IELTS, okay, there's something that you should know. I think it's common in a lot of English tests that people look for the exact same words or phrases. Okay, sometimes that works, but in IELTS, they like to put things in other words, meaning that when you scan for an answer, there's no point necessarily looking for the exact same words. They are going to, the answer is going to be said in a different way than you know what you might think it would. So so that's something tricky about the IELTS reading component. So some people forget that. Okay. So we have a few question types here: multiple choice, identifying, matching, completion, and short answer. Okay. Multiple choice, as you know, A, B, C, or D, that kind of thing, right? They'll give you different choices. Now, the trick for multiple choice, as always, is to eliminate answers that are definitely wrong, incorrect, or absurd, right? Answers that you know definitely are not it. So once you've removed a couple of them by elimination, that leaves you only a couple of choices left, usually, and you can usually guess, you know, the correct one, right? Now, the other type of question, which is kind of unique, I think, to IELTS, is the identifying, where you have to identify either information or a writer's view. Now, the one about information is strictly, is that information there or not there, or the passage doesn't say. Okay, now that's a tricky thing. A lot of people get confused about this part, the TF and the NG, the not given, right? But what they're trying to say is, if it's true, there will be, it will be stated in the passage that it's true, or that statement will be true. If it's, the statement is false, there will be something in the passage that says that's false. If it's not given, there will be nothing in the passage to tell you whether it's true or false. Okay, so that, I know it's a little bit tricky, that one. Writer's views is something else that when you're reading, a lot of people think, oh, I just need to know the meaning of, you know, that, but you also have to think in terms of what is the author trying to express. So the author's point of view is kind of important, not just, you know, what the words say. So keep that in mind. The other one is matching questions, information to a paragraph, headings to a paragraph, features or sentence endings. Okay, so basically, when you're reading a passage, especially the academic passages, because they're kind of long, it's important for you to be able to summarize in your own mind the topic of each paragraph, the main idea of each paragraph. And then from there, again, you can match them to, now, again, what I'm saying here is that when you match, it doesn't mean that they match word for word, but they match in terms of meaning, okay? So don't try and look for a word for word match. You try and pick up. So this kind of tests your ability to paraphrase something, because then you know, the meaning of something means the same as another sentence or whatever it is, okay? Now, completion is another one where you are given, it's kind of like information gap, right? They'll write a sentence and then have gaps, and then you're supposed to fill in the most suitable word. That's the key. What is the most suitable word? All right, sometimes you get two words or maybe three, two phrases that kind of seem the same. But again, which one fits best in that slot? And also please use your word categories to help you. Things like, is it a verb, a noun, or an adjective? Because that will also tell you how it fits in the sentence. And then when you reread the sentence has to make sense, right? The other types of information gap they give you is summary. It can be a summary, like a brief summary with blanks, notes with blanks, tables with blanks, or flowchart with blanks. Then you have to label it or fill it in. Okay, so anywhere there's a gap. Again, the information should come from the reading passage. So there is no assumption that you're not required to know more information than what is in the passage. Now, additional information that you know might help you understand the passage, but the questions won't ask you for information outside the passage. Then the last one is the diagram label, where they might give you a picture of something or a diagram of something or life cycle of an insect or something like that, and then ask you to label parts of that based on the reading. Okay. The final one is the short answer. Now, short answer here doesn't mean a paragraph. Short answer here means very short. And you need to, for short answers, they give you just a big blank, but they will tell you how many words you're allowed to write. They will say no more than 2 words or no more than 3 words. You have to keep to the limit they give you, or you will get that answer wrong, even if your answer was correct, but you have more words than is required. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah, someone says skimming is speed reading, scanning is looking for a good. Thank you. Yes. So I think most of you are familiar. Okay. So thanks for your input. Generally speaking, in IELTS, they should be in order. Questions are, as it says here, questions are in the same order as information in the text. Okay, and same thing for listening. Okay. All right, let's try this passage together. Yes, Wing Fu, is it? You have a question? You can unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay. Wing Fu, did you raise your hand? No? Okay, well, all right. So here we are identifying the accuracy of the information, and they are giving you a true, false, or not given. And it says,
could you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I was just wondering that in the different types of reading questions, do we have a, like, for example, is multiple choice, should we use scanning or skimming more, or like matching, should we use which
No, the skimming and scanning is for you to kind of understand the reading passage before you answer the questions, right? But of course, scanning can you can use scanning after you've read the questions and you roughly know what kind of answer you're looking for. Maybe you need an adjective, you need a noun, or you know, you just want to know what information is true, what is false, what is not given. Then you might use the scanning because you're searching for something specific. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thanks for your question. Okay, so let's move on. Do the following statements agree with the information given in the passage? So this is just testing whether the information is there, is there and it's true, or it's there but it's not, it's false, or it's not there at all and it's not given. Okay, so you can just scan this quickly as you scan. Okay, another thing to do, so when you skim, you also pick up as you're skimming keywords. So you see words here like modern humans, ancestors, Aboriginal Australians, migration, genomics here, gene structure, migration. So the word migration appears a few times. Aboriginal appears quite a number of times as well. Genetics and gene and genomics, so words related to genes. So if you know, then genes mean the our DNA, or the structure of our who we are is passed down from one to the other. We call that genes. So genomics is a study of genes. Genetic diversity is the amount of differences in our gene pool. Genomic analysis is the process of analyzing our genes. So this kind of vocabulary, like, look out for that, because that understanding that will give you an understanding of the whole passage, right? And then you see the word Aboriginal Australians. Okay. So you should know, but you may not know, but Aboriginal means original to the country. So when you say Aboriginal people, you mean the original people who lived there. They didn't move there. They were already there all the time, right? So Aboriginal Australians are those who were already living there a long time before the British settlers went to Australia. Indigenous is another word. So if you see this word indigenous, it means also like Aboriginal. Indigenous means original people. Okay. But Aboriginal Australian is what they use to describe the original people in Australia. In Canada, they use the word First Nation, and Indigenous people are often used for South America and so on. So there's just kind of different ways of calling people who are the original people. Okay, so, all right. So some of you already answered it. Wait, okay, well, here's the, whoops. What happened? Okay, so modern humans ventured out of Africa some 80,000 years ago. While the ancestors of Aboriginal Australians were part of this migration, recent genomic analysis reveals a rare and unexpected later development. Genomics, or the study of a population's gene structure, suggests that Aboriginal Australians arrived in a single migration to Australia at least 50,000 years ago. Despite this, however, as Aboriginal Australians adapted to different conditions in the continent over many thousands of years, a remarkable genetic diversity resulted. This means that there's greater genetic diversity between Aboriginal people living in the east and west of Australia than there is between the much more culturally diverse races like the Indigenous people of Siberia and North America. Okay, so the question is true, false, not given. Aboriginal Australians are descended from the inhabitants of Africa. True, false, or not given. So you can type it in the chat if you want. True, false, or not given. So let's see the chat. Interesting. A number of you are saying not given. The majority of you are saying it's true, and you are correct. The answer is true, because it says here modern humans ventured out of Africa some 80,000 years ago. So modern humans means everybody, right? while the ancestors of Aboriginal Australians were part of this migration. So they were part of this humans venturing out of Africa. So yes, they were also descendants of Africa. Okay, so that is true. Now, you may also know this is true because you have the knowledge that, yes, according to science, we have discovered that almost all races have descended out of Africa. So you might already kind of know that, right? Okay, the second, number 2, ancestors of the Aborigines settled in Australia about 80,000 years ago. True, false, or not given? What do you think? This is kind of a tricky question. Okay, the answer is false, because according to the sentence here, Aboriginal Australians arrived in a single migration to Australia at least 50,000 years ago. So the answer is 50,000, not 80,000. And notice here, Aboriginal Australians arrived in a single migration to Australia is a paraphrase of what is in the question part, right? So it's not exactly the same words, but it means the same thing. So that's what you need to look for. So the answer to 2 is false. Okay, now they do a little trick thing here, right? Because they confuse you because there are 2 numbers here and they, you know, they know you might get confused between 80,000 and 50,000. So don't get tricked by things like that if they're like multiple statistics or something like that. Yes, I know some people picked up on the at least, you know, but on the surface anyway, 50 is what it is. Okay. All right. So the answer to number 3, Aboriginal Australians are the most genetically diverse race in the world. Is that correct? Does it say in there that they are the most genetically diverse? No, it's not given. Correct. Absolutely. Nothing is said here about them being the most genetically diverse race. What they're trying to say here is that there's greater genetic diversity between the people living in the east and west of Australia. So what they're trying to say is because they geographically have lived apart for so long, their genetic diversity, they're quite diverse from each other, even though they're both groups are from Australia, but they're just geographically very far apart. And they say that they're more diverse, you know, than people of 2 different countries like Siberia and North America. So that's just a kind of an interesting point. So the answer is not given. Okay. All right. So let's move on. So our advice is what? Look for synonyms, right? Phrases that are synonyms. Settled in Australia means arrived in a single migration to Australia. Now, look for, also be careful about distractors. Distractors are what test makers deliberately put in a test to confuse you. So the words here that they try and confuse you on is the word diversity, right? Diversity means differences or variation. So they use genetic diversity and the phrase culturally diverse and assume that you might confuse the 2 of those, right? So make sure you're aware about little differences like that. So what's our advice generally? Read the questions first, then skim the text. Okay. Right. So they will give you some time. There is some time whenever you get time, quickly skim, read the questions, and then go to the text. Then you kind of know what to look for, right? So as I said, the 3 skills shown there, skimming, scanning, and reading for detail, don't necessarily happen in a linear way, right? They happen sometimes all at the same time. Underline keywords, that in paper-based, that's helpful to you if you underline the keywords. But as I showed you, you should just highlight to yourself the key phrases like Aboriginal, Indigenous, ancestors, just words that will give you a clue to the topic. Note the number of words allowed in your answer. So I said that before. IELTS the test paper will state how many words you should write for the short answer blanks. Make sure you follow that. Okay, as I said, if you have more words than they want, you will get 0 for that. Don't worry about words you don't know. Unusual words will be explained within the text. If the word isn't explained, it's not important. Okay. But words like Aboriginal or genetic are not considered unusual words, right? You don't waste time on any one question you're having trouble with. Okay, that's the key for all tests, right? You're under a time constraint, so you need to finish everything in the time given, so you don't have time to mull over your choices or worry about, one question in particular. Okay, especially in reading, you have roughly 20 minutes per passage because there'll be 3 sections, right? So roughly divided, but 60 divided by 3 is about 20 minutes per section. In that 20 minutes, you have to not only read, you also have to answer the questions. So your reading time is probably only 10 minutes and then 10 minutes for answering the questions. So just think about how fast you need to go when you do that. Don't waste time on any, 1 mark each for right answer, no penalty for wrong answer. So that's a good thing about IELTS. They don't have negative marking. Okay. Any questions in general about about reading, sorry. Okay, you can save your questions till the end too. That's fine. All right, let's start talking about writing. So okay, just a tip about the reading is make sure you read a lot of different types of informational type of reading, right? Not just newspapers. Of course, reading newspapers help because online news and so on, they're quite easy to read for most people. You need to read things like news magazines like Times or even The Economist, which is a little bit harder. But things like that, any kind of weekly news magazine, National Geographic, things with long feature articles, okay? So, and read on a variety of topics, not just on things that you like to read about. Somebody's asking here, Martha's asking about fill in the blanks and putting articles, and you have to put in articles if, yeah, you should, if it's clear what it is, right? Unless the article is already in the question, then you don't have to put the article, right? Okay, sorry, I've answered that. So Taha, yes, you have a question. Can you unmute yourself? Yep, quickly. If not, we can answer a question at the end as well. No? All right.
Just a second. Yeah. I'm just gonna unmute.
Yeah, please do it quickly because otherwise we'll kind of run out of time here.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, okay. Go ahead.
When you say by filling up the blanks, should we fill up the blanks with the exact word from the article, or should we change it?
That one should be from the article. Right. But as I said, you should not have more words than what they allow you to write. So if it says no more than 3 words, then you can't have any more than 3 words. Sometimes it says no more than 2 words and or a number. So your combination in total cannot have more than 2 words plus a number.
I see. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
A bit complicated. Yeah.
All right.
You're welcome. Okay. All right. Thanks for your question, Taha. Okay, let's go. Let's talk about writing. Writing is the most fun one that everybody loves. Actually, writing is difficult. It's not easy because it's generative. You have to think, and you're not allowed to have any tools with you, right? No dictionaries or anything. So in academic, you have 60 minutes and 2 tasks, the same as general training. But your question, especially in task 1, is very different from general training, okay? For academic task 1, they will give you some sort of visual information. So basically, because you're applying to university and so on, that's why they want to make sure that you can do things like summarize what you see in a piece of information, like data or something like that. So they will give you something like graph, table, pie chart, bar graph, sometimes diagrams, processes, cycles, flow charts, etc., right? But very frequently they give tables, right? And graphs. And very often they give you more than one. So you have two graphs or tables, sometimes, you know, a mixture of them, right? Then you have to compare and contrast the information in both. So very rarely it's just one, you know, piece of data. If they give you a diagram, it will be one process, one cycle, one flowchart, okay? And map and layout. Now maps have been more common and more frequent lately. So make sure you practice, especially if you're doing academic, that you practice being able to write about placement, the placement of things, north, south, east, west, to the left off, to the right off, those kind of words for maps and layouts, okay? The layout could be a room, or it most likely is more like a village, and then it's got some houses or something like that. Now, the second task for academic is very similar to the second task in general training. So we'll kind of discuss that together. Basically, the task 2 is an essay that you have to do some essay writing on sort of a topic that, you know, about your opinion. So now let's look at general training task 1. The task 1 in general training is to write a letter. That's all. They will give you some guidelines and you decide whether it's a formal letter or semi-formal letter, like meaning less formal. But basically you have to use letter structure, okay? Like so. And then, as I said, task 2 is similar to, you know, the academic task 2. You have to write an argumentative essay based on some topic that, you know, has, what do you call it? That can be argued, okay? All right, before we do that, let's talk about how we'll be scored. All right, is it Roy? You're asking if you can get band 7. If you read the writing band descriptors in the PDF handout that you have, you will find out that simple sentences cannot bring you to a 7. You know, you need to show some complex sentence structure, okay? And to Roy, also to your question about using the question sentence, in the writing, no, you cannot use any of the words, the wording in the question. You have to paraphrase all that in your own words. Some keywords you have to use, but you cannot just repeat the question in your answer, okay? Is that understood? Because that's kind of that's quite a significant thing, yeah? So here, how you'll be scored, let's look at that. Task, achievement, and response. That's the first one. Now, in IELTS, you know, things kind of go in 4s, right? 4 skills, four criteria. So task, achievement, task, response is the first one. Coherence and cohesion is the second one. Lexical resource is the next, and then grammatical range and accuracy. Okay, now let's look at task, achievement, and response. A lot of things hinge on the task, achievement, and response. You need to make sure that you answer the question that they're asking you. Okay, if that part is off, it's very likely that you will be marked down for the other parts, because if you didn't get the question and you answer out of point, it means that the lexical resource, which is vocabulary that you use, is also not relevant. And so you would get a lower score there. Okay, so just make sure you answer to the topic that they give you, right? So task, achievement, response is the first one. And The next one, coherence, cohesion, excuse me, is how well have you crafted your paragraphs, your sentences and paragraph, so that it has a logic in it. As people read it, it makes sense, right? It's not just a mishmash of sentences. You have to have good organization in your paragraphs. So that is key to being understood. And that's why it's called coherence. Coherence means how well do things stick together and how well can people understand what you're trying to say. So when we say, are you coherent, or that person was incoherent, meaning we don't understand what they're trying to say, right? So that's coherence and cohesion. Lexical resource is vocabulary. Okay, so make sure you have a wide range of vocabulary, you are well read, and you have lots of vocabulary. Basically, the vocabulary for writing. So writing is the same as the reading. It could be just about any topic, right? It could be about education. It could be about shopping. It could be about animals. It could be about, so you just have to have a good background in a number of topics and have a good vocabulary in them. Grammatical range and accuracy, as I mentioned before, Roy was asking about sentence structure. If you want to achieve the higher levels of or higher scores for grammatical range and accuracy, first of all, you have to be fairly accurate and not have errors all through your writing. And your sentences should be a mix of complex compound, what we call complex compound sentences, as well as, you know, some simple sentences, but have a mixture to show that you have the ability to use both. Yeah, the key to being successful in that IELTS writing is to be organized in your thoughts, meaning you need to limit. So I think, Martha, to your point about having too many things to say, I think it helps to take that 2 to 3 minutes beforehand, before you start responding, to make some notes, whether it's mental notes or writing it down, that I'm going to say 3 things and I'm going to stick to these 3 main points or something like that, right? So you make an outline for yourself so that you don't ramble on and then find out you don't have enough time at the end to finish what you're trying to say. Okay, you need to be very concise. So you need to practice what do you call it? Time practice. Like you need to practice doing all the questions within the time frame given. Okay, so let's talk about the academic writing task 1. So I'm just going to go through this one because it's not easy, the academic writing task 1 for sure. Okay, but thanks for your comments though, Martha. Thank you. Summarize in your own words information presented in a graph, table, chart, diagram. So basically, they want you to be able to describe a visual in words. That's all it is. You do not have to make any predictions or any conjectures or about, you know, what's going to happen and so on. You just need to say what you see. That includes patterns and trends. Are there similarities, differences, and patterns? Okay. I say trends because sometimes they will show you something from, you know, 10 years ago, that 10 years to now, and then you can call it a trend, right? If you see a trend line, okay. And then things like, you know, before and after diagrams or something, those are just strictly comparison contrast, right? What's the same, what's different, that's it. Okay, the key for task 1 in both general and academic, general training academic, is that you have to write at least 150 words. Now, this is a minimum, this is not a maximum. I think some people have gotten confused before. They thought that's the maximum, but no, it's the minimum. If you write well over 200 words in 20 minutes, that's fine. But writing too many words doesn't help you either because you will run out of time. So as I said, you have to plan what you're going to say and say it in as, you know, concisely as possible because you don't have time to ramble on. Okay. Okay, so let's have a look what that looks like. Okay, you see this? So here we have a bar graph and a line graph. So you see that each graph talks about something different, but the timeline is the same from 1985 to 1995, so a period of 10 years. But you have to be careful to look at what each table or chart is describing. So for example, the first graph, you see the bar graph here, is talking about Japanese tourists traveling abroad and the number of them in millions. So this is 2 million people, 4 million people, 8 million people, 12 million people, etc. Okay. This is something you need to know is what do these numbers represent? Because when you write it, you have to accurately indicate what these numbers are. Otherwise, you'll get in trouble. Now, if you look at the other graph, the line graph, says your Australia's share of Japanese tourist market. It says percentage of people visiting Australia. So percentage of tourists, Japanese tourists visiting. So this would be 2%, 4%, 6%, and 8%. So do not confuse percentages with actual numbers. Okay. Now you have to compare and contrast the two. It says here, now it keeps reminding you, you have only 20 minutes. So seriously, you will be given 60 minutes for both tasks, but you are responsible for controlling the amount of time, right? So it keeps reminding you that this task could take no more than 20 minutes. If you take too much time to write task 1, you will run out of time to do your task 2 because task 2 requires you to write at least 250 words. Okay, so that's a whole lot more than this one. So, all right, so the charts show the number of Japanese traveling abroad between 1985 and 1995 and Australia's share of the Japanese tourist market. Now, this statement here, you cannot write it as is into your answer. If you do that, they will negate all the words in here and remove it from your word count. So let's say you have 160 words, but out of the 160 words, you have, let's say, 15 words that are copied from the what we call the question or the rubric. If you use that 15 words, then it'll be 160 minus 15. And then if you minus 15 from 160, what's that? You will come to about 145 words, which is 10 words below the word requirement. And you will be penalized 1 band score at least. And if you have more than that, or not more than that, you have fewer words than that, you will be penalized 2 band scores. So being under length, what we call under length, is actually quite a significant problem. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting main features and make comparisons where relevant. The key words here are summarize, meaning they want to know, in general. Select and report the main features. Now, this word main features will come up for writing all the time. Main features means what are the main important things that you see in the chart. So the first thing is, in terms of summarizing, is that both statistics were increasing over the 10-year period, right? Now, the key is, where did it increase and where did it decrease? Those are the significant features, right? When something increased, so over time, you want to catch where there were significant increases and significant decreases. So you can see, for example, that 1989 to 1990, there was a decrease in the percentage of people visiting Australia from Japan. Okay, but then it went up again. So basically, the trend for both is continuous upward trend with some periods of dip, like in 1991 for Japanese tourists traveling abroad, right? So those are the main features. Comparison, okay, means similarity. So the similarity is that they both increased over the period of 10 years. Now, the question is by how much? You cannot just say something increased or decreased. You have to say specifically how many percent or by how many millions of people did it increase or decrease. Okay, so giving the data is really important. Otherwise, you will get no more than a 5. Basically, you have to write a bit more than 150 words. Do not write only 150 or 151 or 155 because that's too close to the minimum, right? And if there's any words that need to be removed, then you're kind of stuck because you cannot, because you don't have enough words to get by, right? So, all right, let's talk about the rules of writing then. Okay, so the structure for both the academic and general training and task 1, task 2 is that you need an introductory paragraph. Then you need the body section to highlight key features with figures, and then write an overview in the conclusion. Now, you can put the overview either in the introduction or conclusion, but whatever you do, do not forget the overview. What is the overview? Overview is like the main point. So if you look at a graph like this, what's the main thing that you see? Is that both the number of Japanese tourists traveling over and the share of the tourist market have shown a significant increase over the 10 years. So in the case of number of millions visiting, the increase is almost 3 times what it was 10 years ago or 10 years before that, right? The percentage of people visiting Australia is about 6. So increase about 3 times as well. Okay, so you can say that that is sort of the main point, is that they're both increased by 3 times. Sorry, the introduction, who, what, when, where. So let's have a look. So you could write an introduction like this. The chart and graph compare the number of Japanese who spent their holidays overseas from 1985 to now with the proportion of them who visited Australia. You notice that they use different words to express the same meaning, right? So we call this paraphrasing. Okay, so make sure you do that. You don't want to seem like you're copying. Now make sure you don't copy the sentence structure or copy the words, the groupings of words. Now your paragraph can be 1 sentence, it can be 2 sentences, that's up to you. Now here, the highlighting key features with figures can be just so basically in the short 150 word paragraph, you have 1 short paragraph for the intro, then you can have 1 longer paragraph for the key features, or you can have 2 paragraphs if you wish, but they will be shorter, and then a paragraph for the conclusion. And again, your conclusion could be just like a sentence or 2 sentences, okay? But the main thing is in between is you're highlighting the key features. So some people do it this way. This one is describing the first graph. In 1985, only about 5 million Japanese travel abroad. By 1990, the figure had more than doubled. So you see that you have to actually describe the numbers and say the numbers. You can't just say, oh, it increased, right? Even if you say more than doubled, but you still have to say what that number was, okay? But you see the words are used: slight drop the following year, upward trend, numbers reached over 15 million. Okay, so that's the first graph. So they write a second body paragraph describing the second line graph. While Australia was a destination for under 2% of Japanese tourists in 1985, this percentage had risen to over 6% by 1994. So you have to give the date and the statistic, and then say the proportion grew consistently. So consistently means steadily, right? It wasn't in fits and starts. after reaching its 1994 peak, the percentage declined. So you see words like decline marginally. So it's good to use words like this, more academic words, rather than saying went up and went down, right? If you use those kind of phrases, it shows that you don't have a strong vocabulary, okay? Like higher and lower, but use words like declined marginally. So marginally means just a little. So you see how much more accurate these descriptive words are, right? If you say marginally, people can picture, yeah, very little, okay? Or if you say increase significantly, it means it's a lot, okay? So now, what is the highest score for task achievement you can get if you don't include figures to highlight the key features? If you have your PDF booklet with you, you can turn to the, I think it's the last page or the second to last page. It has the descriptors for writing. And you can look there and look for, don't include figures to highlight key features, and then see what the grade is that you'll get. So any guesses or any suspicion as to what the highest score you can get if you don't have numbers? If you don't put your percentages, you don't put your numbers, what is the highest score you can get? Put it in the chat if you want to guess. So somebody says 5, somebody says 4, somebody says 5. Well, you're kind of in the ballpark. The answer is band 5. There may be no data to support the description, but this is like the highest for task achievement. If you do this, if you forget to put in the numbers, okay? Now 5 is not a good number. It's not going to help you, because even if you get 6s and 7s, you know, on the other components, everything is averaged out. So a 5 will pull your score down. So it's, you know, so don't forget to put the numbers. Now, you don't have to put every number. So if you notice, they didn't write, you know, every number for every year, right? Because there's 10 years. So, you know, there's 10 numbers. They didn't write all of them. They were selective about which ones were the significant ones, okay? So you have to pick and choose as well. All right, so overall, despite the relatively small proportion of Japanese tourists coming to Australia, the Japanese tourist market corresponded closely with the growth in Japanese tourism overseas generally, with a trebling of both in the 10-year period. So here is your overview. It says here, both increased and there was a trebling of both. Hello? Oops.
It seems like you are freezing, Mei. Yes.
Can you hear me? Sorry, my computer
Yes.
is hung a little bit. So can you see my screen?
Yes, but it seems like it's lagging.
Okay, just sorry about that. Just give me a sec.
Sure.
Because I couldn't tell if
Yeah, it's working now. It's working.
It's working now. Okay, are we back on track? Okay, sorry
Yes.
everybody. Sorry for that. I had a little circle of death moment. All right. So sorry about that. Okay, so this is the overview component. What can you get? What will you get if you don't have the overview? Any guesses for this one? Any guesses? Let's see. Chat in the. Oh dear. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay. The Zoom is, like you said, lagging. It's actually not responding when it says here waiting for the program to respond when I click on something. So let me close that.
Yeah.
So anyway, just verbally, can anyone tell me what is the
people are guessing five, six,
okay.
5, 6, mostly
Thanks.
5 and 6. Yes.
Thanks, appreciate that. I can't see the chat.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'll read that. Yeah.
I'm gonna click on it though. I don't know if here. 5, recounts detail mechanically with no clear overview. Okay, so recounts details mechanically, meaning you said, oh, in 1985, this many people went to Australia. In 1986, this many people, you keep repeating things, but you're not showing that you understand the comparisons and the contrast. Okay, so don't do that either, because you'll just get a 5. So what is the recommendation? Make sure you write at least 150 words. Again, the only way you can tell, if you can do that is to do time practice. Practice, writing in 20 minutes and see if you can generate more than 150 words in that time. Again, keep to that structure of introduction, 2 sentences, body, and then your body would depend on how much information you need, but your conclusion should also be no more than 2 sentences, right? You can roughly divide it into 50 words, 50 words, 50 words that will give, or have 50, and then the body could be 60, and then the conclusion could be 50 words, something like that, okay? Make sure you have the overview or the most important part. Select the most important information. Support your points with figures and examples. So what we mean here is statistics, numbers, etc. Have you made effective comparisons? Have you used linking words to connect your points? Have you organized key points into paragraphs?
And click on your new answer. If you want to leave any of the questions unanswered, click on the answer again. For some questions in the reading test, you need to choose which paragraph or section contains the information listed in the table. Remember to scroll to read all the text. For each question, click on the correct space in the table. If you want to change an answer, click on your new answer. If you want to leave the question unanswered, click on the answer again. For some questions in the reading test, you need to click on a heading for a paragraph or section and move it into the gap. If you want to change your answer, move another heading into the gap. If you want to leave the question unanswered, move the heading back. And for some questions, you need to write your answer on a gap in a diagram. If you wish, you can also highlight sections of text.
Hi,
Hi everybody. Sorry about that. I believe it was my Zoom was acting up there. So sorry, it wasn't the internet, it was the Zoom. So anyway, I'm back again. So
Yay.
Yeah, thank you. Do you want me to continue?
Yes, please continue.
Okay, so I share, or you have to stop the sharing first. Wait, where's my Can you write answers in, apparently you can write capital letters, but it's a bit taxing for most people to write all caps and everything. Yeah. Any questions while we're trying to get sorted again? Anyone have any questions? Now, where's my?
Should I read some questions to you?
Sure.
So you
Yeah,
can
please
answer
do.
in the
Yeah, I
meantime.
think I cannot access the, otherwise I might disturb the thing again. Yeah, go ahead. Ask the questions while I put my slides back up too.
Okay, so there's a question asking, in terms of reading section, which types of questions that we can find their answer in order in the passage and which are not in order?
I think I answered that one, right? Earlier.
You did already? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm gonna go from
Wait, where's
the recent one then.
Oh my God.
When are we supposed to write an overview after the intro or after the two main body paragraph?
The intro?
Yes.
The intro is always at the beginning.
Okay.
It's the conclusions that is at the end. So don't confuse the two. Intro is introduction, so it's at the beginning. Okay.
And then the next question is, in computer-based tests, can I answer task 2 first before proceeding to task 1?
All right.
Yeah.
As I said before, you have 60 minutes to do both task 1 and 2. You are given the control over the time. Now, some people have tried to do that, maybe do task 2 first, but remember that task 2 requires a lot of thinking because it's an opinion kind of piece. What you might find is that if you do task 2 first, you use up too much time for that, and then you end up not having sufficient time to complete task 1. Do you know what I mean? So task 1 should be done quickly, and it's well within the scope of 20 minutes. Then you can have all the time you want to do the second essay, right? I mean, the second task. Okay, does that make sense?
I think it should be fine. And then the next question is it okay if I only have 2 compiled complex sentences in a paragraph?
If you have 2
compiled complex sentences in a paragraph?
No, well, I mean, if your paragraph is only 2 sentences, then that's fine. But basically, if you want to show a band 7 and 8 or whatever it is, you need to show sustained use of complex sentences, right? It's not something you just throw in just to get the marks. You basically are able to express yourself in complex sentences all the time, right? So you have to be able to sustain that. It can't be like, oh, I just throw in a couple of sentences like that. Okay. If you have simplistic sentences most of the time, I mean, the examiners can tell that you are struggling with the language, right? That you're not that comfortable in it.
Yeah. And I guess one more question before we
Sure.
continue. Can I write the answers in capital letters in the exam?
I think I answered that, but just for those who didn't catch it, you can, I believe, write in all caps, but it's very tiring on your hand if you're doing, it's usually not something we do for English writers, native English speakers. We don't write things in all caps, because that's just, we don't do that. Capitals are for headings or highlighting something important, or titles or things like that, but we generally don't write everything like a whole paragraph in caps. Yeah. But for short answers in your reading or something like that, yeah, you can definitely do that, right? Okay, anything else?
How about, there's a question, how about we want to use the word decrease beside decline in the writing part?
What? Yeah, I saw that. What do you mean decrease beside decline? Because decrease and decline are very similar in meaning. So if you use one, you probably don't have to use the other. So there is a decline in the number of diseases, or there's been a decrease. And so they're very, very close in terms of meaning. You can't use them together if that's what you mean. Yeah. Okay. Can everybody see my screen again? Okay, so anyway, let's move on. This was the process one, right? The answer. All right, let's go to the general writing task 1. So let's do that quickly. As I said before, so yeah, let me know if, okay, please, somebody let me know if you can't see something or you can't hear something, because I really can't tell.
It works fine.
Yeah, it works fine. Okay.
Yes, yes.
There have been some problems with public transport in your area recently. Write a letter to the manager of your public transport company. In your letter, then they give you 3 things. Describe the problems, explain how these problems are affecting the public, suggest what changes could be made. Begin your letter, dear sir or madam. Okay, now you only need to start with dear sir or madam, or you can make a name if you wish. But you don't have to write the whole address, their address, your address, all that, right? You don't have to do that. Just dear sir or madam, and then at the end say yours, you know, yours sincerely, and then your name. That's it. Okay. So letter writing, as long as you have studied a little bit of formal letter writing, you know, this shouldn't be difficult, because they give you all the info you need. Okay, it tells you the general topic. You see that the yellow words, right? There have been some problems, you know, they give you the broad problem. Then they will tell you who you're writing to. It says here, write to the manager of the company. And then they give you 3 things you need to say. You have to describe problems, explain the problems, and suggest changes. You must write and address all these points. Okay, make sure you do that. So the rule is here. What's the rule here? State the purpose of your letter, right? Right at the beginning, say, I am dear sir, madam, I'm writing to you to, and then whatever, okay? Cover all the bullet points fully. What they mean is don't just cover, like over here, if it says describe the problems, then you spend the whole time describing problems, and then you just, you know, very briefly cover the explanation and the suggestions, right? They want you to, you know, write equally as much about each of those points. Maintain an appropriate tone throughout. So what they mean here is that you have to know, or is it extra formal or is it just informal? It's just basically 2. Are you writing to your friend, or are you writing to your boss, or to your, you know, to some external party, like this, like a manager in another company, something like that, right? So here's an example of dear sir or madam, and then stating your purpose. I am a resident of Newtown, and I'm writing to you to draw your attention to recent problems with public transport in our area. So that fulfills that first one, right? Briefly, the roadworks along Hill Road have led to long delays. So describe the problem. Long delays in bus services. Furthermore, the new weekend bus time has dramatically reduced the frequency of buses on Saturday mornings. Now, this scenario, you have to kind of come up with some details on your own, right? So you kind of make that up. So the more detail you put, you know, the better. Of course, within the time limit, do not write too much, because you spend too much time on the details, then you won't be finished in the 20 minutes. Now, it tells you to explain more. So like more about the problem. So the effect of these actions are very obvious during peak hours. There's a high level of public concern about the situation. So you're elaborating on that first part. Then you give a suggestion. May I suggest that, right? Buses be rerouted along the Great East Road until roadworks are complete, blah, 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 right? Notice that they've given 1 paragraph to each of the 3 things that you need to address, which is a helpful way for you to structure your writing. So 2 sentences for introduction, 3 brief paragraphs to fulfill the 3 bullet points, and then 1 sentence for the conclusion, and then yours faithfully, you know, and then your name. You can make up your name too. You don't, okay? So what is the highest score for task achievement if you don't cover all the bullet points? Any guesses? Any guesses for that one? Five, 4. Okay, let's see. The answer is 4. If you don't cover all the bullet points, okay, it's a 4, and that is very low. And that will significantly pull down your mark, even though it's only for task achievement. Okay, so don't forget to cover all the bullet points equally. Also, maintaining appropriate tone means you have to use the right phrases, the correct phrases, like polite phrases. I write to draw your attention to. Furthermore, okay, that's kind of a formal way. We don't really say that. We just write that. There is a high level of public concern about, may I suggest? So when we say may I suggest, right, the modal, using the modal may makes it more like you're politely suggesting, you're not ordering them to do that, right? I would also recommend, okay. No, this is, Martha is asking, this is for general training. This letter writing is not in the academic one. Okay, just make that clear. This is not academic. This is writing the letter is for general training. So here's an example of a band 6.5. So you can read that to find out, but basically they tell you what the examiner's comments are. This letter has a clear purpose. All the content is relevant. The bullet points are well covered, but could be more fully extended. Now, the key to getting the 7 and 8s are that you give more information, that you're writing a little bit more, giving more specific description, right? To show that you have more specific vocabulary. Okay, the thing that stumps people often is they don't use accurate vocabulary, so they can't really describe in a concrete way. Okay, organization is logical, very good use of linking devices. So errors in word order are noticeable. Omission of prepositions and so on. So if any of your errors are repetitive and occur very frequently, then you will get a lower score on your grammatical structure and so on. Okay. Okay. Here's another version, but this one is of an informal letter. Okay. An overseas friend wants to visit your country on holiday. Write a letter to your friend. In your letter, recommend the best time of year to visit and why. Describe the types of accommodation your friend could choose. Say what you would like to show your friend in your country. So again, they will give you verbs like recommend, describe, say. But this one, straight away, you can tell. It says write to a friend, so you can be a little less formal. Now, that doesn't mean you can use rude words or slang or what that SMS language, right? Like abbreviations. In IELTS, you want to write nice sentences with proper punctuation, everything spelled out, okay? So let's have a look. This is, okay, dear, and then your friend's name, right? You wouldn't say Mr. So-and-so because it's your friend. So it just describes all the parts. So it's informal, like looking forward to catching up. That's a very informal way of expressing things, right? Okay, so what's our advice? Analyze the task to look for more than one element in a bullet point. So sometimes the bullet point might say, give 2 reasons for, or describe the problems, which means more than one problem, right? So if they ask you to describe problems and you only state one problem, then you're not fulfilling the requirement, right? So this is check for plural forms, and so on. State the purpose of your letter in the first paragraph. Okay, that's always the case, whether you know in work you're writing an email, just tell people what you need at the front. Do not wait till the bottom of the email or the letters need paragraphs, which is also, you know, task 1 for academic also needs paragraphs. Polite rounding off, looking to the future. So thank you. I look forward to, you know, we often say that, right? Write in a style that's suitable, formal or informal. Do not mix the two, right? Do not sometimes sound really formal and then drop to informal. Avoid using the same words as those given in instructions. So this applies to all the writing. Do not copy from the question. Start the letter as shown in the question, dear sir or madam. Okay. Do not include your address at the start. Okay. So, and then end the letter in the appropriate way, yours faithfully, and so on. Okay. Okay, any questions about that, about task 1 for general training? It's much easier in a way than, of course, than the academic one, but obviously the academic ones, because they want you to be able to write about statistics and information. Whereas in general training, they want you to be able to just write up a letter, because that's what you'll need to do when you go to another English-speaking country. All right, let's talk about writing task 2 for both academic and general training. The kind of questions are pretty similar, so we can just use this. Basically, there's opinion, discussion, and multi-part question, okay? I mean, they're all variations on asking you your opinion, okay? But the main thing that they want you to do is to provide general factual information, provide a solution, justify an opinion, or evaluate evidence and ideas, okay? When it says provide general factual information, of course, you're not required to give statistics or, you know, memorize any facts or something, but just from your own experience, okay? The point is not necessarily what you argue there, but the fact that you are making a logical sort of argument, right? So for every reason that, or every answer you bring up, you need to have a justification. Like, why do you say that? I say that because, you know, here's an example. It says, raise relevant examples from your own knowledge and experience. Okay, so you're allowed to say, well, you know, in my circles of friends, you know, we don't normally do this, so this is why I think, right? So that kind of thing. Now, of course, for academic, if you want to write academically, you need to be able to use more academic phrases, higher level, and also have a higher level of analysis, right? So here's a sample of a question. Children who are brought up in families that do not have large amounts of money are better prepared to deal with the problems of adult life than children brought up by wealthy parents. To what extent do you agree or disagree with this opinion? Now, the trick here is to what extent do you agree or disagree? So what they're saying is, you can agree and disagree, but you probably agree more and disagree less. Something. So you have to decide how you want to answer that. Here's an example. This is an example of a band 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 paragraphs. Okay. So at the beginning, it says, I agree with this. Okay, now that's wrong. I agree to the statement that children brought up in poor families are better prepared to deal with the problems of adult life than children brought up by wealthy parents. It says here, the rubric is copied, but when it's deducted from the overall word count, the response is not underlined. So that's why it's better to have a lot more words than too close to the minimum, right? Because this guy was actually, this person was penalized for this part, the first paragraph, because he kind of copied that. But after you minus that, he has enough words, he or she has enough words, so it's not a problem. So it would behoove you, or you could write significantly more to avoid that problem. Or just don't copy, okay? Well-organized, paragraphing is used appropriately. The answer can be read with ease, okay? Appropriate word collocations, precise vocabulary choice. Syntax is equally varied and sophisticated, and there are only very occasional errors in otherwise very accurate answer. So this is the kind of 8. You want to look at this as an example of an 8. Again, sophisticated and varied syntax. What syntax here means, you know, sentence structure. Okay. All right, let's look at this one. Discussion essay. Now, when they ask you to discuss, you need to give both points of view. So it says here, some people believe the increasing popularity of shopping as a leisure activity is a positive trend. Others believe it's harmful to individuals. Discuss both these views and give your own opinion. So it will tell you, you have to give both views and your own opinion. So straight away you think, okay, introduction, conclusion are 2 paragraphs. If you give both these views, so view number 1 is 1 paragraph, view number 2 is second body paragraph, sorry, and then your opinion is the third body paragraph. So that gives you 5 paragraphs. So a 5-paragraph essay should be able to answer this question. Okay, so that's how you would structure it. Multi-part question essay is a little more complex, but again, the same thing. Read this, so they'll give you like a statement that is debatable. So shopping is becoming more and more leisure as a leisure activity, popular as a leisure activity. However, some people feel that this has both positive and negative effects. Why is shopping so popular? What effects does its increase in popularity have on individuals and society? This is a tricky question because it not only has 2 questions, but in the second question actually has 2 parts. Have you noticed that? Okay, first of all, why is shopping popular? So you kind of say that, well, I believe that shopping is very popular because it is fun to buy something new all the time. And it's a kind of stress reliever for people who work very hard, etc., etc. And it's a good thing to do when there's nothing else to do, right? What effects does its increase in popularity have on, so individuals, that's 1, and society is another one. So that's essentially 2. There are 2 questions in this one question. So essentially there are 3 questions. So you can have 1 body paragraph about popularity of shopping. Second one, its effects on individuals, which can be negative effects too. And then negative effects on society. So for individuals, the negative effect could be what? Obsessive compulsive buying and wasting money and becoming in debt, right? Like your credit card debt. Society effect on society is that what? Greater wastage, right? We buy and we throw, we buy and we throw. So what's that? The academic word for it? Consumerism. You can talk about how society has becoming more consumerist and buying more things than we need, etc., which causes more waste and so on. So that kind of higher level discussion is what they want to see for people discussing the academic, for the academic test. Okay. Well, for general training, you can also discuss this, but it's not as important. But for academic, you need to do that. Okay. Especially when it talks about questions about society or about the world or the globally or something like that. Okay. So you can read here, this is also a Band-Aid. This is very long. So again, minor errors that do not detract, error-free. Majority of structures are error-free. Okay, so we're talking about very, very few errors, if any. Okay. So what do we recommend for part 2 writing? Allocate your time properly. Task 2 is worth twice as much as task 1. Remember that. Decide on your position, express your view clearly, and provide support. So if you argue a certain way, you must be prepared to give examples and evidence. Organize ideas into paragraphs, each with a clear focus. use a range of vocabulary and grammatical structures, analyze the task and write relevant content, use a variety of linking words to connect and sequence your ideas. Do not, okay, this is really important. Do not write in note form, use headings, or write bullet points or numbered lists, right? Like if you're going to, there are 3 reasons, don't put 1 dot and then reason 1, 2 dot, reason 2, don't do that. Everything must be written nicely in coherent paragraphs. No short forms, okay? And no bullet points. Check your work carefully, know your usual mistakes and look out for them. No headings, by the way, no headings because it's just such a short piece of writing. Headings are generally reserved for reports and lengthy things, right? Check your work carefully, know your usual mistakes and look out for them. Okay, so let's move on to speaking. So I'm going a bit faster here because of time. So speaking, 11 to 14 minutes, and there are 3 parts. So this is simple, okay? Just think, so in IELTS, they like to make the question, you know, things progressive in terms of difficulty. So for example, listening, you will have something easier, then something harder, and then the most difficult is at the end. For reading, it's the same thing. The first passage will be fairly easy, second passage harder, and then the hardest one will be the third passage. Same thing for speaking. Part 1 is going to be easy questions about who are you, where are you from, what do you do, you know, your job or your student. Part 2 is trying to give you a chance to show your fluency by giving you a topic and allowing you to speak for 2 minutes. We will give you an extra minute to kind of prepare, like you can make some notes on a piece of paper, but you only have 1 minute and 1 minute goes by really quickly. Sometimes even before someone has put the pen on the paper, the 1 minute is up. So you have to think quickly. You know, if you want to make notes, quickly make notes. If you don't want to write on it and you want to make mental notes, that's up to you. But you have 1 minute to prepare. And then when the examiner says to start talking for the 2 minutes, you have to start. Okay, everything in the speaking test is very closely timed. So there's no time to waste. If the examiner says, you may start speaking now, don't take another 30 seconds to prepare and then before you say something. The minute they say you can start speaking now, you should start speaking, okay? And don't start with a, right? That's not good for fluency. Then the more difficult part, of course, is the general discussion. Okay, it's easier in the sense that it's free flow, but the discussion is meant to bring out your ability to discuss a topic that was raised in part 2. So part 2 and 3 are similar topics. So you have to discuss at a higher level about whatever it is you were talking about in part 2. Okay. Now, how will you be scored on speaking? Again, fluency coherence is number 1. As I said, don't have long pauses or ums or ahs because all that will affect your fluency and coherence. Fluency means how smoothly can you get your words out. Coherence is how much do your words make sense to someone else. If you stop for too long or you stop every time you say a sentence, or sometimes you stop before you say the next word, all that can interfere with someone understanding what you're saying. So, or if you keep going, and then you say something, then, right? That kind of, if you go too slow or you're too hesitant, that can really make it hard for the listener. Lexical resource is also 25%. Grammatical range and accuracy is 25%, and pronunciation is 25%. Basically, which do you think is, well, I won't say, pronunciation is kind of hard to change. So changing pronunciation requires a lot of practice, dedicated practice, and also maybe special programs that you need to do if you want to change your accent or something, right? But the key is fluency and coherence. You know, your pronunciation may not be great, but make sure that you try to be comfortable in your speaking, right? Lexical resource is important because if you don't have a high level of lexical resource or vocabulary, then you might not be able to express what you want to say. Okay. Grammatical range and accuracy, usually if you're fluent, if your fluency is good, your pronunciation is clear, and you have most of the words, your grammatical range, I mean, is, you know, I mean, you can't do much about that, right? It takes a lot of effort to change your accuracy. Okay, so let's just listen to this. So let me know if you can't hear it. I'm going to play this interview, and this is only the part 3 discussion part with the examiner and a lady named Alexandra from Colombia, and she is a band 7. So I want you to listen carefully to find out why she's a band 7. She's not a bad speaker, but she's also not super high, right? So here goes.
So we've been talking about a well-known person.
Volume okay?
And I'd like to discuss with you 1 or 2 more general questions related to this. Let's consider, first of all, being
Sorry, I'm just checking. Okay, yes, thank you. Thanks for, yeah, it's good to have some responses.
in the public eye. Yeah.
Public eye, being in the public
What
eye.
are some of the advantages and disadvantages of being famous?
The advantages are that first that you will get really rich, and the fame actually helps you because you don't have to pay for a lot of stuff. They will give you free dresses and free stays in the hotels, free meals, free everything. So actually you're saving money plus the money that you're earning. And the disadvantages are that being a public eye, you lose your privacy. You will always be in the eye of paparazzi and people, and if someone recognizes you, they will take a picture of you, and that's the end of the relaxed evening. So I think that it will be a really big disadvantage.
Do you think if a celebrity accepts those endorsements, do you think they lose their honesty?
I don't think that they will lose their honesty, but maybe it will change them. They will have to accept the environment that they are living into right now. So if they get famous and they're not selling their soul to the devil, I don't think that they are that bad. I think that it's just human, and if they like it, well, better for them.
Can you talk about how the media reports on famous people in your country?
The reports of the media in my country, they are like having half serious news and half entertainment. So the reports are often, but not that often. They don't have like big news if Shakira gets married or not. It's like a small news, but it gets bigger with the people, not with the media, because people start talking about the news, not the media makes it big.
Do you think more time should be spent on current events and political news?
I think so, but I think that we also need a rest from the serious stuff, and we also need entertainment. So it will be a balance, because only bad news is not good for anybody. So I think that half and half will be better.
Why do ordinary people find the lives of celebrities so interesting?
I think because if they see somebody that successful and rich failed or getting dumped or in jail, I think that we feel better about ourselves, because we think, okay, we might not be rich, but we are better than them. So I think that's why we like it so much, to read that kind of news.
So you think most people want to see that celebrity fail?
Maybe, or maybe depends. If you don't like anybody, you will like them fail. But if you really support one person, you will like them to be like really successful.
Let's talk about celebrity culture. How does the media use famous people in advertising?
In a lot of ways, because if people follows one person, for example, Justin Bieber right now in the Super Bowl, the media will use it and publicists will use him as long as it takes, because if he's famous, the money return will be really high.
Do you think people want to buy a product because the celebrity endorses them?
It depends of the target, but if it's a smart target, it won't be happen like this. But if it's like a child or teenagers, they will follow anything if their leaders does it.
You mentioned Justin Bieber. Are there any negative effects of young people becoming famous?
Maybe not for the people that follows the famous people, but I think that it will be really bad for that poor guy. Being famous at that young age, you don't know what is good and what is bad, and they will always turn bad.
Thank you very much. This is the end of the speaking test.
Okay, so that gives you an example, an idea of what the third part is like for the speaking. But here are the comments that were given to her about her for band 7. So she was quite fluent. She could actually, give some ideas. And she says she uses good linking words like first, actually, I think so, for example, or in a lot of ways. Excuse me. She had good vocabulary. She used, idiomatic words like lose your privacy, selling your soul to the devil, getting dumped. Getting dumped means your boyfriend, girlfriend like left you. Grammatical range and accuracy. She had a good range of simple and complex structure used flexibly, and many sentences were error-free, but she still had some, problem. Like if someone recognized you, if people follows, you will like them fail. So some of the word order was not right. Pronunciation, clear, easy to follow, and stress and intonation was okay, but she did say jung for young, but that's kind of minor. So what's our advice? Listen, read, and think in English. Talk at a steady rate, not too fast, not too slow. Use the preparation minute to make notes. So use natural fillers. Now, let me think rather. Do not say, how do you say, or do not ask the examiner questions. Do not ask the examiner what a word means or how to say something. Use stress and intonation in English. That's really important. Do not sound flat. Don't worry about grammar mistake. Move on, right? Because we all know that if you focus on your mistake, it can stop your fluency. Also, just a quick word for some of you, just to remember, it says talk at a steady rate. What it means is like some people speak very fast. Maybe you're nervous or whatever, but speaking too fast can make you incomprehensible to other people. So make sure you speak not so fast, but do not speak super slow, because then the highest you get is a 5 or a 6 if you go really slow. Okay. Give more details about each of the points. So elaborate. Okay. The key to 7 and 8 is your ability to extend the discussion, whether it's in writing or speaking. You must be able to, go into detail, give a lot of detail and explanation. Give reasons, right? Weigh up both sides of a question, give examples to support them. Okay, so be very logical too. I mean, even if you're doing general training, if you give an opinion, you must sort of have a reason for it. Like, don't just go, oh, well, that's because I think so. Why do you think so? Why do you think that? Then tell them why. Rehearse, work, and study where you live questions, but sound natural. So practice describing your room, describing your house, because they will, sometimes ask you that. Describing your job. Okay. Give your opinion with, as in my view, as far as I'm concerned, generally speaking. So just learn a few good words you can use in speaking to give your opinion. Practice all kinds of topics: education, health, fitness, travel, transport, leisure, communication, science, history. Like some people have told me, oh, we're not good at, if a question came out about arts, do you like the arts? Do you go to the museum? Make sure you familiarize yourself with at least basic things about art. Have something to say about it. Even if you don't like art, at least be able to say a few things about art, right? Okay, so here we come to the last component, which is listening. So I'll quickly do this. So hang in there with us. I'm going to play the listening. Now you have in your sheet, what do you call in the PDF, you have the questions on it. If not, you can follow along on the screen, but just take notes when you're answering. Listening is 30 minutes, 4 sections, 40 questions. The same thing happens here is that, you know, section 1 is supposed to be easier. It's going to be something simple about general topic, 2 people talking, right? Probably a kind of filling out the form, like tell me your address, your name, your phone number. Basically, you have to recognize numbers in this section, section 1. Phone numbers, house number, names of places, names of people, and then what else? Numbers like addresses and things like that. Okay, so you must familiarize yourself with listening to numbers. For longer strings of numbers, make sure you chunk the numbers. Like, you know, I usually go, 4 numbers first, then another 4, then the next 4. That's usually easier to remember than trying to just remember every single number. Now, part two is a talk given to you. Usually it's about a place to visit, like a museum or like a tour guide telling you where to find things, or so you have to be familiar with, places that you visit. So is it a museum? Is it a amusement park? Leisure things usually. And then places of things, like location of things, like over there and then over there and then over there, that kind of thing. Then the part 3 is back to a conversation, but it's mostly about learning, teaching and learning in university. It's college, right? Usually a prof maybe talking to students, or students talking to an administrator, or students talking to other students about learning, something about learning center, about the library, about where to find resources on campus, that kind of thing. Okay. Then the last one, section 4, is about, it's like a lecture on a general topic, health, education, science, whatever. Okay. One person talking, and it's generally a lecture. So it's hard, the hardest bit. Now, this listening is the same for both academic and general training, so there's no difference, okay? Now, apparently for paper-based, you can transfer your answers. You have 10 minutes, but this is only for the paper-based portion of IELTS. In the computer-based, you do not get any extra time, okay? All right. So we have something here, which is probably more of a part 1 type of listening. So you can follow along and just put number 1 to 8, because that's all we're doing is like 8 questions. And I'm just going to play and we can just follow along. Okay. So get your pens ready, or your phones, whatever you want to write this in. Okay, here goes. So this is theater. Okay, first, what you can do is look over the topic, right? Theatre Royal Plymouth booking form. So Theatre Royal Plymouth is some kind of a theater, a book, and they want to book theater seats, right? So it tells you things like date, time, tickets, and so on. So if you familiarize yourself with this, you can know what to expect. For example, if it says date, it'll be a date. Time, then it'll be a time. Seats will probably be a letter and a number, right? Something like that. Method of delivery, total payment will be, no, we don't need to do that one. Card type, so like, is it MasterCard, Visa? Number would be a string of numbers, right? And then name would be somebody's last name, right? Because it says J here, so this is a last name. All these little things will help you hear it. Okay, here goes. I'm going to start it now.
Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time.
Once
Listen
only.
carefully and answer questions 1 to 4. Hello, Theatre Royal Plymouth?
Oh, hello. I'd like to make a booking, please.
Yes. What is it you want to see?
The Imposter.
Right. And which day did you want to come?
Friday the 25th.
Just a moment and I'll check availability on the computer. Oh, sorry, we're fully booked for that performance.
Oh dear. What about the following day then?
The 26th? Yes, that's okay. We've got two performances on that day. One at 3:30 and one at 7. Which would you prefer?
Oh, the later one, please.
How many people?
Well, there are 4 of us.
Are there any concessions? Any children?
Oh, I'm not sure. My daughters are 15 and 12. Do they get concessions?
Only the 12-year-old, I'm afraid. So that's 1 child and 3 adults. Any idea where you'd like to sit? Stalls or circle? Tickets for the stalls are a bit more expensive. £12 for adults and £8.50 for children. The circle costs £10.50 and £6.50.
Do you get a good view from the circle?
Oh, yes. And in fact, we've got some seats left at the front if you'd like those.
Right. We'll go for those then.
Right, that's seats A21 to 24 then. They're very good seats.
That sounds fine.
So let's see, that comes to £38 altogether for the tickets. How do you want to collect them? Shall I put them in the post? They'd be sent today by first-class mail and there'd be an additional charge of £1 to cover postage and administration. Or do you want to get them from the box office yourself?
Oh, yes. Could you send them, please?
No problem. That'll be £39 altogether. Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10. Could I just take your card details? What kind of card is it? Visa? Switch?
MasterCard.
Okay. And the number?
It's 3290 5876 4401 2899.
2899. Okay. And the name on the card, please.
It's Mr. J. Whitten. WHITTON.
N for never or M for mother?
N for never.
Thank you. And now I've nearly finished, but I just need your address and postcode.
Yes, it's 42 South Street.
Okay. Is that Plymouth?
London.
And the postcode?
It's SW2 5GE.
That's fine then. The ticket should be with you tomorrow. Is there anything else I can do for you?
Yes, I was wondering if I could get regular information about what's on.
Certainly. I can just add your name to our mailing list. Would that be okay?
That would be very good. Yes, please. Oh, and there is something else, sorry. One of our group is hard of hearing, and I've heard that you can supply special headphones.
That's right. As long as you tell us in advance, we can always do that. I'll book those for you now, and you can just collect them from the box office before the show.
Thanks very much for your help.
No problem. Thank you for calling.
Thank you. Bye.
That is the end of section 1.
Okay, so
Now we shall begin.
So let's have a look at the answer. So in IELTS, just something to remember, they will only play the recording once. So you must really concentrate and follow along as the recording moves on. Do not get stuck on any question, because the minute you pay attention to one question too long, you miss the next one, the next piece of listening. Okay. So the answer for the first one is the 26th. The second one is the time. So either one of these three options is okay. The seats in the circle. So circle is just the above the second floor there. A 21 to 24, it can either be capital A or small a. Type of card, MasterCard. Now, MasterCard, capital M, because it's a name of a company. Number, there's the string of numbers. Again, as I said, chunk the numbers. You know, listen to the first four, write it down. Listen to the next four, write it down. That's how you remember. The name Witten, they spelled it out for you, W-H-I-T-T-O, so you should not get this wrong. And it's capital W because it's a name. It's a person's last name. Then they said, put me on the mailing list. Then he said, someone's hard of hearing. We need some headphones. Headphones is one word. Okay, now why do we know that? Because it says write one word and or number. So you should not have two words, right? Anything with two words is wrong. Any questions about listening? Thanks for hanging in there to this part. All right, I will then move on if there, well, let's just quickly wrap up here. Use your time, read the questions before you answer. Underline keywords. Think of synonyms to help you predict likely content, right? So try to guess what kind of answer is going to come up. Questions follow recording order, so just follow along with the listening, right? Don't fall behind. Stick to the word limit. Don't copy extra words over. And listen to the intonation, because that should help you, okay? So let me check here. So make the use of every opportunity to use English. Set targets for your preparation. So if you know your date, then you work backwards. Please give yourself time to prepare, okay? I mean, you do want to prepare and do well. It's you know, for all the effort you're putting into it, right? Choose academic general training, know how you'll be scored. IELTS preparation courses focus more on test taking than language skills. So you can take IELTS prep courses to make you have sort of know what to expect from the test, but it's not going to make your English better, right? What makes your English better is using your English every day and talking to people who are native speakers or whatever, be in a native speaker environment, yeah? So IELTS 7 or higher represent thousands of hours of language learning. Take a long-term approach. Anything you do in English will help you to improve your skills. Push yourself every day and everywhere. So here are the next steps for you. This website, IELTSessential.com, has a lot of good information that you can access. You have your masterclass pack. If you don't, you can get it from the admin, and you can do this. This is an official IELTS practice test online. It costs about $50, 50 US dollars, I believe. I don't know. You can access this if you pay money, but this is, they try and make it as similar to the actual test, and then they'll give you your results. Okay. All right. So we've come to the end of the session, and thank you for sticking around for this long, and sorry for the slight interruption in the middle. So now is question and answer time. So we've ended now. So those of you who need to leave, you're free to leave the meeting. But thank you again for joining us. And if now let's have questions. I'm happy to answer whatever questions you have.
All right, everyone, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand and then I will unmute you so you can answer directly to me. While we are waiting, I'm just gonna read out the answer in the chat box for you as well. So that's a question of how to increase lexical resource and coherence in the writing task.
Okay, so Cyril, thanks for your question. how to increase lexical resource. Basically, you have to read more. Okay, that's the connection. A lot of people think I can just study for writing or I can just study for reading, but actually reading and writing are closely related. If you read a lot of English, you will learn a lot of words, and that's how you get better at your vocabulary. Memorizing word lists is only helpful to a certain extent. Basically, you have to read English. You have to see it, right, visually, so that you can remember it, and then you can use it in your writing. If you have new words that you learn, you know, every day, write down the words you learn every day and try to use it in speaking as well. Okay, so language learning is integrated, you know, listening, speaking, reading, writing is all together. For the test, we have divided them up, but actually we speak, we write, we do everything together. So if you can improve your reading and your speaking all around vocabulary, then you can also use that to increase the vocabulary in writing. So watch more content in English and read in English. Coherence, just know some good linking words, you know, like therefore, however, in on one side, on one hand, on the other hand, you know, that kind of thing. Okay.
Yes.
So coherence linking words, we call them. You can find word lists of those. Okay.
Okay, so we have a question from Dia. Would you like to ask the question now?
Who's that? Sure.
Yeah. Dia, can you speak and ask the question now? I saw you raise your hand. No? Okay. So, yeah, okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay, what's the difference between academic and general training?
Okay, just to clarify, it depends on why you need to get an IELTS score. Are you doing it to enter university, or are you doing it to enter a country, to migrate to another country? If you are doing it for university, then you need to take the academic test, because they will not take a general training score for an academic. Like a university will not accept general training score to get in. Does that help? Is that what you meant, Dia? Hello?
Moving to another country.
Sorry? I missed that. Did you ask another question?
No, I think she said she wants to go to another country.
Oh, okay. Then it would be general training, but you should check with, you know, what you're doing in the other country. If you're going to the other country and then you also want to study in a school, maybe you do academic. So you have to decide that. Okay, it's up to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm going to read one more question. How to deal with sudden occurrence of brain fog during speaking?
That's very hard to, there's no tips except to force yourself to focus. The key thing is to get enough sleep the night before, wake up refreshed, have some coffee if it helps you to stay awake. Like if your speaking test is in the afternoon, you're feeling drowsy, have coffee or Coca-Cola or whatever to keep you sharp. Yes, you do need to be sharp because you have to answer immediately, right? You don't have time to prepare. And that's something I keep telling people in the speaking test. Do not prepare your sentences. Like some people, like when they get asked a question, they will suddenly stop and go, and then like think for 5 seconds before they say something. That is not good for coherence and for fluency, fluency. So you have to speak comfortably and easily. Your words have to come out easily. You can't be composing. If you are translating and composing in your head before you say it, then your fluency is going to be low. Okay, so that's just how it is.
Okay, we have another question from Charlemagne. I'm not sure if I read your name correctly. I'm sorry, but would you like to ask the question?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
If I will be taking the IELTS, what kind of test would I take? the training or the general?
Sorry, Charlemagne, did you hear our conversation with someone else previously? She asked
yeah.
a question.
Academic, because I'm a nurse. I'm trying to clarify if whether I will be taking the academic or the
No,
general.
but you have to have a purpose. Are you migrating to another country, or
yeah.
Are you trying to apply to a university to do a program like a master's degree or something? Because
no, I'm applying for a job in the US.
You just need to find out, you know, I don't know where you would find out, but about entry requirements, or if the job requires you to prove your English, like you need to find that out, because that would affect which one you take, right? But if it's generally migration to Canada, US, or Australia, definitely it's general training. Yeah, but some people may want to sort of kill two birds with one stone and do, but I don't know how that would work. You need to check with the migration specialist or other people, because I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to that. It would really depend on your purpose. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's right. Thanks, Martha. Yes, it depends on your employer's requirement or your institution. Some places, like if you're going overseas and you have to do training, like some sort of skills training, they also want to see an IELTS score. So you need to check.
Okay. Then we have another question from Iman. Would you like to ask a question now?
Okay. I would like to ask about, do my accent will be scored in speaking test?
Sorry, Imam, your accent?
Yeah. Do my accent will be scored in speaking test?
No, the accent is part of your pronunciation and your overall fluency and so on. So don't be concerned just about the accent. But the question is, does your accent stop people from being able to understand your English, right?
Okay, got it.
But if
Thank
you
you.
focus on fluency, that should not be so much of a problem. And if you know you mispronounce certain things, then you should go to those dictionary and then listen to how the words are pronounced, that kind of thing, just to improve. And also don't speak too quickly and don't speak too slow. That's the main thing. Okay?
All right. Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. And then next question from Morty.
Yeah, hi.
Hi,
Can you hear
Morty.
me? Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Ask about watching an English movie with a subtitle good for listening and speaking as well?
Sure. Yeah. As long as the subtitles are also English, not in your own language, right? Because if it's in your own language, then it doesn't really make any sense.
And while we are writing the essay, last test I was scored 6.5. It shows have to add some more vocabulary in that. So can you tell me any other ways to improve the vocabulary for writing in the essay, or we have to search for the word like Google or something like that?
What I recommend, Mukti, is reading. Reading lots of material, reading news, reading magazines. And also when you're reading, you learn new words, remember the new words, and then use them in your writing. That's how you get better. If you don't read English, you can't improve your vocabulary.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
All right. And then next one. Would you like to ask the question? Is Darwin?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Hi,
Regarding with the speaking test, if it's okay, if it doesn't cost a mark, if I just continue my speaking just to finish off my thoughts, and then the examiner will just interrupt the conversation.
No, everything is timed strictly. You must not speak over time. If the examiner says thank you, it means stop.
Even though the thought was not completed,
yes, even though your thought was not completed.
So most likely I will lose marks for that.
So that's why you need to be concise when you speak. Be very clear
okay.
about what you want to say. You cannot ramble and you cannot tell long stories because you don't have time. Everything in the speaking test is timed very strictly. So if they say you have 2 minutes to speak, you have 2 minutes, not 2 minutes and 5 seconds, right? Yeah.
For additional question, for example, in the part one in speaking, usually what would be the estimated or the average length of the duration of the answers you need to achieve in order for you not to be interrupted?
It's not really that long, because when you're speaking, you should look to the examiner for cues, right? When you speak to other people, if they start looking bored or they start looking like not paying attention, that means it's time for you to stop talking. For examiners, it's something similar, but of course they won't look bored. They will just look like they're going to say something else. And if they look like they're going to say something else, you can stop there. Okay? So look at their eyes, look at their face, look at their cues, right?
Okay, understood.
I think the main thing in speaking, even though, okay, there's a difference between those who have nothing to say and then those who just like talking and not listen, not look at the examiner, right? So if you find yourself the kind who likes to say too much, then look at the examiner for cues when to stop. Okay, but for part one, your responses, you should give more than, of course, a short sentence, right? But you shouldn't, you should not go on for a long time, right?
Okay.
Does
Thank
that
you,
help?
ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thanks for your question, Darwin.
Thank you. Okay, one more question. I think we have around 5 minutes left, so maybe one more question, I guess. Lydia, would you like to answer? Would you like to ask your question?
Lydia, are you there?
Yeah, are you here?
Hi.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. One of the problems faced by me is the lack of ideas, especially in writing text too. For me, it is difficult to write an essay on a topic that I have never considered before. So what should I do if I don't have an idea?
So Lydia, it means that you have to read about many topics. You have to go to, you know, online news, read about news and what's happening in the world every day. Read a variety of things, like it says, it could be about health, it could be about animals, it could be about trees, it could be about farming, it could be about a lot of things, like
okay.
Yeah, you know, it could be any topic. So you just have to read English a lot on a wide variety, sports, on a wide variety of topics, and make sure that you get some content, like, for example, sports, you know, your own experience, like what have you played before? What do you like? What don't you like? Those kinds of things, right?
Okay, okay.
Have some basic knowledge about everything. That's basically what, okay?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think last question from the chat box. So how much scores do I need out of 40 in order to get band 7 in reading and listening?
Okay, so Chloe, I think Chloe was the one that asked that question. I don't know if she's still here, but there are a lot of things online to do the conversion. So you just put IELTS reading test conversion, then you just key in your number out of 40 and it will generate the band score. Okay, does that make sense? Hello?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe she's gone.
Yeah, probably.
But
oh, she's there. Yeah, but yeah, you can just go online and type, you know, IELTS reading test conversion and out of 40, something like that, and it will give you the conversion, the website to convert. Yeah.
All right. I think one last question from Darwin again.
Hi, Darwin.
Hi. Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah,
I have additional question, ma'am, regarding in the writing test. Especially on task 1, it is okay if the overview will be put next, right after the intro, because most of the review center really had that format with introduction, overview, and the following paragraphs.
Okay, your overview, first of all, must be an overview and it must be
Yes,
obvious.
yes.
So
Yes, yes.
yes, you can put it in the introduction. That's fine.
Okay, okay. Sige.
Okay.
Thank you.
Like if
Thank
you
you,
put
ma'am.
it there in case you think, oh, I might run out of time, you know, in the conclusion, right?
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Then
Thank
you
you.
can restate it in the conclusion. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay. I saw 2 other people raise their hands. Any?
Okay, let me check.
There were 2 other people.
I think okay. Dia, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, I want to ask again for the last, how to practice every day if there is no one else to talk to in English, like watch movie or something.
Yeah, I think the most you can do is, and I know a lot of people actually who learned very good English, like pronunciation and stuff, from watching the TV show Friends, because they use a lot of like casual language and they're kind of funny. So watching those kind of shows like sitcoms are actually really good because you learn a little bit about English language culture as well as the words itself, right? So what's a newer, I mean, there are other newer shows that you can watch that are funny as well. But just anything where you're listening to the English. And then, as I said, you put the captions, the subtitles in English. So if your reading is good, you put the English reading and the listening so that you're getting both the listening and the reading at the same time.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you. I think that's all for today, you guys. So I just
Thank you.
want
Thank you,
to,
everybody. Yep.
yes, I just want to, you know, thank you, Mei, for joining us today and giving us such a, you know, useful information, and for everyone who joined us today until, you know, the very end as well. Mei, would you like to say anything before we end the session?
No, I just wish everybody all the best in their test when it comes up, and basically just practice your English, practice, practice, practice. So yeah, all the best to you. And I'm so happy that you were able to stay right till the end. I know some people couldn't, but thank you. And thanks for all your questions, everybody.
Thank you. And thank you for my co-hosts from Myanmar and Indonesia as well. Would you like to say something? Maybe Indonesia?
Hi, thank you for coming to this IDP IELTS Masterclass webinar. I hope that you all get some ideas about how to do IELTS like efficiently, and you also got the tips and trick to do the listening, reading, writing, and speaking as well. And I wish you that you have met your score that you require to probably go to the college or something else. I wish you all the best for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And for those of you who would like to know more about computer-based tests, I'm just gonna turn on the video that I play last time to continue. And if you want to leave now, it's fine as well. I wish you all the best of luck for your IELTS exam. And good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night. Bye.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm just gonna play the video for those of you who would like to stay a little bit longer. Just a second. Can you, oops. Okay.
Welcome to our computer-delivered IELTS Tutorial 1. This tutorial will show you how to complete and prepare for computer-delivered IELTS. For each section, there's a clock at the top of the screen, which tells you how much time you have left. For the reading and writing tests, the clock will turn red and flash when you have 10 and 5 minutes left. The tests will automatically stop when the time finishes. The instructions for each part are in the box at the top of the screen. You can use the navigation bar at the bottom of the screen to move from one question to the next. Click on the number to go to that question. You can also click on the forward arrow to go to the next question, or the back arrow to go to the previous question. When you have answered the question, a line will appear under that question in the navigation bar. You can click on Review if you want to look at the question again later. The question number will be shown as a circle. You can review and change your answers at any time until the end of the test. Click on the yellow arrow if you want to make the navigation bar smaller. You can use the scroll bar to see all the questions. In each of the tests, you can change the screen settings. To do this, click on the Settings tab at the top of the screen. You can change the size and color of the text. In each of the tests, there is a Help tab. If you click on the Help tab, this will give you information about the task you are currently doing. If you click on Test Help, you will see information about how the test works. If you wish, you can also highlight sections of text. If you need to leave the test room for a few minutes, you can hide your screen by clicking on the Hide tab. When you return to the test room, click on the Resume Test button. That is the end of the introduction tutorial for computer-delivered IELTS. Check out the IDP IELTS YouTube channel for tutorial videos for listening, reading and writing.
The process for taking IELTS on a computer starts by being greeted by an IELTS staff member. They will verify that it's you by checking your passport or ID and scanning your fingerprints. You can check in and leave your belongings with our staff. Then our staff will take your photograph for identification purposes. Next, our staff will take you to the waiting area where you can relax and wait for your exam to begin. Our invigilators will read the rules and exam procedures to you. You will take the listening, reading and writing sections on a computer, which will take 2.5 hours. You will then take the speaking section one-on-one with an examiner. When the time comes, the invigilator will take you to the exam room. This is your last chance to make sure you have left your belongings outside the exam room. When you enter the exam room, the invigilator will take you to your assigned seat before explaining the rules and regulations one last time. IDP will give you noise-cancelling headphones for superior sound quality and convenience for the listening part of your exam. After taking the computer-based parts of the exam, you must return to the waiting area and await your turn. Our examiner will take you to your room for your speaking exam. The examiner will verify your identification by recording your name and exam ID number. When taking IELTS on a computer, all sections of the exam will take place on the same day. The speaking section will take place in a private room without any noise or distraction. If you don't understand any questions, you may ask your examiner to repeat or rephrase the question. When you finish your exam, our invigilator will take you back to pick up your belongings. The results of your IELTS on computer exam will be released within 5 to 7 days, enabling you to study abroad or land the job of your dreams in various countries around the world. Your IELTS, your choice. Faster results, more test sessions. Speaking Exam One-on-One. Learn more about taking IELTS on a computer app.
In the reading test, the text appears on the left and the questions on the right. To see all the text and the questions, you'll need to use both scroll bars. For some questions, you need to choose an answer. If you want to change your answer, click on a new answer. If you want to leave a question unanswered, click on the answer again. To look at the next question, just click on the question itself. For some questions, you need to choose more than one answer. If you want to change any of your answers, click on the answer you want to change and then click on your new answer. If you want to leave any of the questions unanswered, click on the answer again. For some questions in the reading test, you need to choose which paragraph or section contains the information listed in the table. Remember to scroll to read all the text. For each question, click on the correct space in the table. If you want to change an answer, click on your new answer. If you want to leave the question unanswered, click on the answer again. For some questions in the reading test, you need to click on a heading for a paragraph or section and move it into the gap. If you want to change your answer, move another heading into the gap. If you want to leave the question unanswered, move the heading back. And for some questions, you need to write your answer on a gap in a diagram. If you wish, you can also highlight sections of text. To do this, left-click and drag your cursor over the section of text or question you wish to highlight. Then right-click and select the highlight option. To remove highlighting from the text, right-click on the highlighted area and select Clear. If you wish to remove all highlighting from the screen, right-click on a highlighted area and select Clear All. You can also make notes on a section of text. To do this, left-click and drag the cursor over the section of text or question you want to make notes about. Then right-click and select the Notes option. Your chosen section of text will be highlighted and a yellow notepad will appear. You can write your notes on this. Click on the cross in the notepad to hide your notes. To see your notes again, click on the highlighted section of text. If you want to see which areas of highlighted text have notes, move the cursor slowly over each area of highlighted text. If a small orange box appears, it means that the highlighted text contains notes. To remove notes from text or questions, right-click on the highlighted area and select Clear. For the listening test, you can change the volume by using the volume bar in the top right at any time during the test. For each part of the listening test, you will hear the recording once only. Some parts of the test have more than one type of question. Each type of question has its own instructions. In the listening test, listen carefully for the part number and question numbers to make sure you are looking at the right screen. For some questions, you need to write your answer in the gap. For some questions, you need to choose which diagram label, A, B, C, etc., is correct for which item listed in the table. For each question, click on the correct space in the table. For some questions, you need to click on an answer and move it into the gap. If you want to change an answer, move another answer into the gap. If you want to leave the question unanswered, move the question back. And for some questions, you need to move an answer into a gap on a diagram. At the end of the listening test, you'll have 2 minutes to check all of your answers. The tests will automatically stop when the time finishes. There are 2 parts to the writing test, Part 1 and Part 2. You can answer the parts in either order. You write your answer in the space on the right of the screen. Your answers are saved automatically. You do not need to press Enter on your keyboard. For the reading and writing tests, the clock will turn red and flash when you have 10 and 5 minutes left.
All right, that's all for today, everyone. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.